Welcome back to our second session in the Self-to-System series, Begin with the End in Mind. Last time, we talked about something that I believe is foundational to every relationship and every project we work on. Responsibility comes before results. We talked about that pause in between what happens and how we choose to respond. We explored the idea that responsibility begins in that pause. Today, we're going to build directly on that idea. Once we learned how to choose our response instead of simply reacting, the next question becomes, where are we trying to go? Something I've noticed, not just at work, but also at home, is most conflict in life doesn't happen because people don't care. Most conflict happens because people care deeply. Just turns out it's about different outcomes. So today's mindset is simple. Clarity at the beginning prevents conflict at the end. I want to remind everyone of where we are on this journey. This series follows a very intentional progression. We start with self, because organizations just don't suddenly become collaborative, and teams don't just suddenly become trusting. Organizations are just collections of individuals making choices every day. So before we can influence a team, we have to influence ourselves. Everything we've talked about and everything we will talk about is designed to build on previous sessions while still standing on its own. You'll notice that every session has the same structure, one mindset and 3 observable behaviors. This is to try to take something squishy, like a mindset, and turn it into something concrete, like actions that you can take. This is my favorite part of the session, where we get to pull out those journals. If you were with us last session, you know we had several journaling opportunities where we could think about what these things mean to us and be able to use our brains in a slightly different way, being able to access those resources. This is our journaling prompt that was sent out before the session. You're invited to think about a task, meeting, or project that didn't go as planned. Thinking about what success looked like to you and if it was defined the same way for others. I want you to think about this mindset that we are using this time. Clarity at the beginning, preventing conflict at the end. This is not about perfect planning or being able to predict every obstacle. It's about taking a moment to ask, what are we trying to accomplish? What does done look like? And how do we know if we've been successful? The more clearly we can define our destination, the more likely we are to arrive there together. Sometimes we move quickly to start on a project because we care so deeply about this work. We jump into meetings and projects and conversations with the best of intentions, assuming that everyone is headed in the same direction. Many of our frustrations don't come because of a lack of effort. They come because of a lack of a shared vision about what success really looks like. Research by Dr. Edwin Locke from the University of Maryland on goal-setting theory suggests that clear, specific goals improve performance by providing direction and focus. When people understand the desired outcome, they make better decisions on how to spend their time and energy. At the same time, our brains naturally fill in missing information with assumptions. We often believe we are aligned because the destination feels obvious to us. But what's obvious to one person is not always obvious to another. I have experienced this being from a different culture than my partner and children. When I say, I want to have a big family dinner, they think this means a lot of food with our immediate family. When for me, it means a lot of food with aunts and uncles and cousins, grandparents, friends, neighbors, and our immediate family. This is a cultural difference in which an assumption changes the understanding of the desired outcome. For our purposes today, I'm going to use this example of a big family meal. This could also apply to a project. The same is true for crew differences. If your crew does a project a certain way, but then statewide is involved, the process can be different. That's today's mindset. Clarity at the beginning prevents conflict at the end. Not because clarity solves all problems, but because confusion creates problems that never needed to exist. This first behavior almost sounds too simple. State the desired outcome out loud. It's amazing how often we start discussing solutions to problems before we've agreed on the destination. Imagine getting in a car with your family, everyone's buckled up, the engine starts, someone says, "Let's go!" But no one says where we're going. That would be ridiculous in a car, but we do it in meetings all the time. We would debate on where we would go or how we would get there, but we need to agree on the destination. When thinking about this with my big family meal, I want to make sure that I say what kind of meal and who I want to be there, where I want this meal to be, and when. Even if we think about this with American Thanksgiving, this is a tradition in our entire country, but we know that many of us don't eat turkey, and in my immediate family, they don't even watch the parade. There are some outcomes that are simply not negotiable. This might be my favorite behavior of today's session. Talk about assumptions early. Our brains are prediction machines. They are constantly filling in blanks. That's incredibly efficient, but it's also dangerous. One phrase I use is, "I'm assuming this. Does that match your understanding?" This sentence has saved me so many hours of rework because assumptions are cheaper to discover before the work begins than after. Being able to ask the questions directly helps us communicate clearly as a team and helps work progress. In my example, I would say something like, "I'm assuming that we are watching all of the Thanksgiving episodes of Friends. Is that what you were thinking?" This is where we close the loop. We've stated our desired outcome. We've shared our assumptions. Now we make sure everyone is on the same page. I like restating my understanding of what comes next. When it comes to my kids, I will ask them to tell me what they got from what I'm saying. Not because I'm testing them, but because I am testing my communication. If their summary surprises me, that's a gift. I'd rather discover now than when I'm eating ribs watching motocross instead of the parade and eating my grandma's pecan pie. Being able to check alignment before we proceed is how we ensure that our teams are communicating effectively. I like to think that the smartest person in the whole room is everyone in the whole room. Every one of us has developed questions to help us save time. All of us have had to learn lessons the hard way. This is where we get to borrow each other's experiences. So I'd encourage you, don't just answer what you think sounds impressive, answer what's actually helped you. Since you'll be watching this video on SharePoint, I would love for you to add these things that have helped you to the comments at the bottom of this page. This way, we can all learn from each other. I'd like to leave you with one thought. Last lesson, we talked about creating a pause before we respond. Today, we talked about creating clarity before we begin. Both are really about the same thing. They're about being intentional. Before your next meeting, your next project, or your next big family meal, try asking one simple question. What does success look like? You may be surprised how often that single question can change everything.